the athletic director at the University of Alabama, Greg Byrne. Good morning, Greg. How you doing this morning?
Good morning.
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
Good.
Well, thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. To our listeners, I can tell you this because I was around a bunch of athletic directors when I was at Alabama for a long time. Greg has come in and hasn't just laid down on the job as far as trying to improve anything that needed improving. He's done that. He's put a money capital campaign money thing together. He continues to work really hard. He's a terrific athletic director. I mean, terrific. He's on top of everything. He got a lot of sports to be involved with, and we're very, very fortunate to have him. And I appreciate his dad as athletic director, and I appreciate him taking time to be on. You okay this morning?
Yeah, thanks, Coach. And I kind of you to say we got great people, great coaches, great supporters, and wonderful university. Very fortunate to be a part of it. That's for sure.
I guess the first question I would ask, I would just say that we don't know what the future holds. We know what the past looks like. And I assume that we can talk about April 15th would be a period of reevaluation as to where we are, and you might want to talk about that so we can get started there.
Yeah, the process has been very fluid, as everybody has seen. Regina, my wife, and I, we were talking last night that we drove up to Nashville thinking, okay, we're gonna go to the tournament, and we're gonna have some meetings, and obviously the coronavirus was on everybody's mind, but we didn't realize the pace that everything was progressing, and so we've gone through a whole process to where, heck, we're going to play the games, and we're going to have people there to no, we're not going to have people there to play the games to, as we were getting on the court ready to play Tennessee, it was decided as a conference that we needed to cancel the tournament. And so what the whole time we've been trying to do is create just check-in points. And for a while it was March 30th. And we quickly realized, today's Wednesday, I think. I don't know if it was late last week or early this week that March 30th wasn't going to be realistic anymore for us. So we pushed everything to April 15th, and that is still the new spot, just to make sure there's nothing else we can do this academic year. But as you saw with what we did yesterday with all the sports. In our meetings with the presidents of the universities, that the spring season's over. We're going to still have that just for a couple, another check-in point as of right now. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear us say, hey, April 15th come and gone without a lot of changes, just because the importance of taking this seriously and making sure we're protecting our student athletes, our fans, and doing everything we can to have this run its course as safely as possible. But we know we have some challenging times that we're in right now, and probably some challenging times ahead.
We're talking with Greg Byrne. Greg, the spring sports, you feel for those athletes, especially the seniors. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the NCAA is talking about possibly giving the year back, which causes other issues. I don't know that everybody's even thought through all these things. Just talk about those athletes and what you guys know right now to date about the spring sports.
Yeah, obviously we were having some great momentum with our spring sports, and softball started as number one in the country and had a bit of a rough start to get going, but it looked like we were starting to get going down the right path with that. And Coach Murphy does such a wonderful job, and baseball, Brad Bohannon really took over a challenging situation 3 years ago, and we're playing really well non-conference. We got some good arms on the mound, and the bats were good too. And so you hate it for them. And I can go through every one of them. Track and field, obviously, they're performing at such a high level. And, our tennis programs have been going in the right direction again. So you feel for the kids because they work so hard and they give so much of their lives to performing, to be a Southeastern Conference level athlete. And so when we went in the meeting room late last week and told them that at that point things were postponed, it was one of the tougher conversations I've ever been a part of. And the look and concern on our coaches' faces was genuine, because they care so much about their kids, because they're around them all the time. You both understand that from your coaching background. And so that was really tough, but you had to balance that. And I had a really good talk with our head of medical, Jimmy Robinson, and Dr. Robinson said, Greg, as much as you want to look at it from a competitive standpoint, and often that's, what we think about, trying to balance academics and the competitiveness with everything else that we're doing. He said, you have to look at this first and foremost as a health crisis, and that has to be the decision making, and everything else is secondary to it. And Jimmy's talk with me about that was very helpful, and probably one that I needed, because I was certainly thinking about it from a health standpoint, but I was still balancing that with, what can we do from a competitive standpoint, because that's part of our job.
Yeah.
And so that it's been a trying time for our kids, because they man almighty, they're so, if you're not excited about the future of our world and our country, come spend time with our student athletes, because we got wonderful kids who are committed to what they do, both academically and athletically, and they're great to be around. And so we'll move forward and support them the best we can through this time. We're making sure we're doing what we can from academic support, mental health support, nutrition, with the few that are on campus right now. So we'll do everything we can to support them through this time.
Has there been any decision on the eligibility of those kids in the spring? Or is that still a wait-and-see thing with the NCAA?
That's still something we're working through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like the concept of giving a year of eligibility back to our spring sports. I'm not sure how realistic it is for the winter sports,
right.
Just because 90% of the season was done. But we're going to have to work through roster limits. We're going to have to work through our scholarship limits, because obviously there's young men and young women who have signed for those sports that we're not going to rescind their scholarship. And so there are details to go through. And, I was talking with somebody yesterday, and they were asking me, what are you thinking about things, a couple months down the road? And I said, got to be honest, we've been so consumed with trying to deal with the details of right now and the realities of the very fast changing world, that's pretty much been the thought process that we've been focused on is the here and now today.
Sure.
This is not as important, but one day we'll be back again, hopefully going after things, making things successful. And you've done such a great job in trying to plan the improvement of facilities. I know the stadium has been involved. One of these days, the basketball arena will be improved. Knowing this is not that as important, but it is interesting to our fans, of course. Talk a little bit about the raising of the money and trying to improve facilities.
Well, we've been very fortunate. The best organizations honor their past, which we do a good job here at Alabama. We're going to continue to, and it was special to the recognition that we did for Wendell this year, and then we had the anniversary of your team coach, which was great to have Robert Ory and all the guys back, and then it's so you got to honor the past, and then at the same time you got to be very focused on today. And as you can imagine, with everything going on, we're very focused on the issues at hand. And then you have to create vision for the future, and that's what we've been doing through the Crimson Standard and the way our donors have stepped up in our 10-year, $600 million goal. We're not 2 years into it, and we're at about 65 million was the last number I had in pledges and commitments, and payments too. So that's we got cash in the door too. So that's helping us with the renovations to Bryant-Denny. And, we put $3 million in the softball, and we were excited to host the SEC softball tournament this year. And that's obviously not going to happen now. And we're working on what our solution is for our golf programs, because we have to find a better solution than where we are right now. But I think we're getting there. And so the donors, the way they have stepped up has been absolutely incredible. We sold all of our $5 million boxes. We sold all of our $1 million boxes, and we're basically sold out of all the premiums except for 2 skyboxes in one area. And we're about 70% of the club seats. The revenue from that is going to allow us to do the other projects down the road as we design and implement them. And I know there's a lot of folks who want us to address basketball, and I, myself, Coach O's, Christy Curry, Dana Duckworth, we're at the front of the line that want to do the same thing. We just have to make sure it's within a financial model. And so when you do a project that size, it's not something as simple as saying, well, let's just go stick a shovel in the ground and move forward. It's a year plus of design. There's obviously steps we have to take through our trustees and Dr. Bell, and we've got great leadership from both those groups and Chancellor St. John, and so we'll be able to figure those things out in time, and it's a very important part of what we got to do going forward, and then also try to do some things for our other sports too.
Well, it's just time consuming just to get it planned, the direction you're going, much less getting it done. Starting to hammer the nail on there. People don't understand it takes months and months and months just to get things planned.
It does. It's Coleman's an older building, and we have to understand what it all looks like. When we did the first unveiling, that was about the 40,000 foot view of what we're looking at. Now we're, the engineering on a renovation, which obviously we're finding with Bryant-Denny Stadium is significant. There's been things through the construction process that weren't on any of the maps, weren't on any of the surveys, so we didn't know some of the things you're dealing with. That'll be the same with Coleman, and then on top of that, you're dealing with a lot of infrastructure there that goes to support our student athletes for a lot of our sports, and so it's important to make sure we can still be operational along that. So there's a lot of design going into that, and we have to continue to raise the money to make it happen, and we're going to be very focused in doing that with everything else going on right now.
So all the construction has been started is continuing to go on right now, Greg?
Yes, sir.
Talk about the offices. Are the coaches allowed to go in? Are they working from home now? What is your guys' athletic department policy on that right now?
Yeah, so obviously we're doing what the university does. We're on spring break this week, so basically nobody is in. And then it looks like I don't know what's been announced yet or what hasn't. If it hasn't been announced yet, I'll let the university do it. But there's some plans for the week after that are close to being announced to move forward. That's going to significantly limit who all will be there. Basically, we'll need to be very focused on the people that have to be there to keep the campus running. But there'll be a lot of things being done by telecommuting and video conferencing, and I've learned how to use Zoom this week more than I ever have before, and FaceTime and everything else. So we're using technology to communicate, make sure we're staying engaged the best that we can.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. Coaches, their wives are probably saying, "Don't you need to go to the office, honey?" Because wives are not used to the coaches being home, especially this time of year. Greg.
No, this is springtime's the busiest time of year, and I actually sent a tweet out the other day just because I literally never watch television to ask what would be a good thing to watch, and part of my big part of the reason why I did the tweet too is to say that we're trying to practice social distancing and the importance of that. And I think if you watch whatever news you watch, that's uniform across the board, the importance of doing that. So I was trying to say, hey, that Regina and I are doing this, and we're encouraging our department to do this, and we need everybody to do the same. And so. We're obviously getting to spend time with our families now during a time of year that, literally in the spring with baseball and softball and tennis and golf programs, and I should have mentioned them earlier too. You're never home on top of all the spring meetings you have. So this is a different feeling, and looking at the calendar and, hoping that we're going to be able to get through this in as short a time frame as possible. But you think, what if, we don't have any sports till the fall? Man, that's a long break. You all have never been a part of anything like that. I know I certainly haven't, and our kids haven't either. No,
Coach Saban's who's a planner, an organizer, and he can't set a date for anything. He's got to be climbing the walls, right, Greg?
He's been very good.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, we've talked several times, and he's been very good in understanding the importance of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, sure.
Alongside that, and one of these days things will be corrected, we all know, but football schedule is something we hear about all the time on this radio show, and because it's big to everybody. And you don't have to name teams, but probably maybe more teams coming to home and home deals more so than neutral fields. I may be dead wrong. That's what
you're right, Coach. You're right.
go ahead and explain it to our listeners, if you will.
Yeah, everything's an evolution. And I think we've seen that with our football scheduling, and the neutral games were really good for us and made a lot of sense and built up to the season. And I think what's happening, when you have obviously your 7 home games, if you have a neutral game, whether it's Dallas or Atlanta or Orlando or other places that we've played, and then on top of that, if we're fortunate enough to go to the SEC championship and then fortunate enough to go to the college football playoff, that's a lot to ask for from a fan base. And so, early on when I came here, Coach Saban and I started talking about football scheduling, and he was really good about it, and recognized that it was continuing to evolve. And so he and I started talking about different opportunities, and I'd present him with some that I thought made sense for us, and he's been great about it. And so we were fortunate. The first one, we got that Texas home and home done. That starts in 22, so not too far. We'll be down there in Austin. I think a lot of our fans will want to go and be a part of that game down there, and then Texas will come back here, and then I think it's either 24 or 25. I think it's 25. We've got Wisconsin and Florida State in the same season, and so that will be where we're playing 2 Power Fives a year, one on the road, one at home. And I've been having conversations with several other athletic directors that make some sense for us to potentially do these. And I think our fans have responded very well, because as you look at what you have as a program, I think one of the best things we can do for any sport, for at least for the ones who have regular home events, is to have good content, whether that's SEC games or whether that's non-conference games.
Yeah.
And so that's been the focus, and Coach has been great about it, and I think our fans have responded very well to say, hey, I'm going to get to see some new and different opponents at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I think having things fresh and exciting is a good thing for anything, and so that's something we've been focused on for non-conference scheduling, and we're actually working on a few others right now. We'll see if we can get them to the finish line.
Greg, last question. I think patience is the big key. I know you guys are asking for, everybody wants a date, but you really don't know. And it makes it difficult when you throw one out there. Everybody's going to hold you to it, I guess the 15th, but maybe give you the last word on what you want to tell the Bama fans.
Yeah, well, I think the most important part is that everybody stays safe. That's our student athletes, that's our staff, it's everybody in our country. And we want our fans to be safe. And so what I'll tell you is what has been driving our decision making is what's best for the health and well-being of our student athletes and of our fans and of our university, and we're going to continue to be focused on that. And we just ask everybody to make sure they're smart. I just got asked last night if I could film something to support the local economy, not necessarily endorsing any business, but just saying, hey, as we're going through this thing, Regina and I got out. We got takeout pizza last night, and they brought the pizza right out to my car. And I think it's important that we practice the social safe distancing, and at the same time too do what we can to safely support the local economy, so the impact on it is as minimal as possible. I can just tell you, we're all old enough to remember September 11th and when the celebration that it was, when everybody got to get back together, and sports was such a big part of that. And I don't know when it will be, but I'm looking forward to having all of us get back together as University of Alabama fans, and the celebration that we'll be able to have, and how sports will unite us and bring us together. And that's what we want to be able to do. But the best way to do that is to handle this in as safe way as possible in the times that we're in right now.
Great
we
stuff.
We want to thank you, Barry and I, both for being on our show. We really appreciate it. But if I'm doing anything for you, give me a holler.
You bet. Appreciate you all. Roll Tide.